Carl Jung believed something disturbing, that you are not who you think you are, and worse yet, most people never realize it. The lie you call yourself. There's something disturbing about the way you see yourself, and Carl Jung knew it. Right now, you probably believe you know who you are. You have a name, a personality, preferences, opinions. You think these things define you, but according to Jung, that version of you is not real. It's something you built, or worse, something that was built for you. Carl Jung called this the persona, a mask, a carefully constructed identity designed to fit into society, to be accepted, to survive. From the moment you were born, you started learning what was acceptable and what wasn't, what made people smile and what made them uncomfortable. You adapted, you adjusted, you hid parts of yourself. And slowly, without even realizing it, you became someone else. Think about it. How many times have you held back your real thoughts just to avoid conflict? How often do you act differently, depending on who you're with? How much of your personality is actually yours? And how much of it is just performance? Jung believed that most people go their entire lives without ever questioning this. They identify so deeply with their persona that they forget it's a mask. And here's the disturbing part. If your identity is a mask, then who is behind it, or worse, what if there's nothing there at all? This is where things start to get uncomfortable, because once you begin to question your identity, everything starts to fall apart. Your beliefs, your habits, your reactions, even your sense of self. And that's exactly why most people avoid this realization. It's easier to live inside the illusion. But if you're still watching this, something inside you already knows there's something deeper, something hidden, something you've been ignoring your entire life. And Jung called it the shadow. The shadow you refuse to see. If the persona is the mask you show the world, then the shadow is everything you hide. According to Carl Jung, every human being carries a hidden side, a part of themselves they don't want to see, traits they reject, emotions they suppress, desires they deny, anger, jealousy, fear, weakness, even ambition. Anything that doesn't fit the image you want to present gets pushed into the shadow. But here's the problem. Just because you hide something doesn't mean it disappears. It grows, silently, patiently, in the background of your mind. Jung believed that the more you ignore your shadow, the more power it gains over you. And this is where it gets disturbing. Because your shadow doesn't just sit there quietly, it acts through you. Have you ever overreacted to something small and didn't understand why? Have you ever felt sudden anger, jealousy, or insecurity that seemed to come out of nowhere? That's not random. That's your shadow, leaking into your behavior. The parts of yourself you refuse to acknowledge start controlling you from the inside, and the worst part, you don't even realize it. You think it's just who you are, but it's not. It's what you've buried. Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Let that sink in. Your life, your decisions, your reactions might not be coming from the person you think you are, but from the parts of yourself you've been trying to escape. And if that's true, then who is really in control? Your mind is not on your side. One of Jung's most unsettling ideas is this: your mind is not fully under your control. In fact, a large part of it is hidden from you, the unconscious mind. This is where your shadow lives, but it's also where your deepest fears, instincts, and patterns are stored, and it's constantly influencing you, whether you realize it or not. Think about your habits, the things you do automatically, the reactions you can't seem to stop, the thoughts that appear without permission. Where do they come from? You didn't consciously choose them, they just happen. Jung believed that your unconscious mind is always active, shaping your perception of reality. It filters what you see. It decides what you notice. It even influences what you believe. So when you think you're making a rational decision, you might actually be following a script written deep inside your psyche. A script you didn't choose. A script you don't even know exists. This is why people repeat the same mistakes over and over again. Why they fall into the same patterns. Why they sabotage themselves without understanding why. Because the unconscious is in control. And here's the most disturbing part. The more you ignore it, the stronger it becomes. It's like something inside you is pulling the strings, quietly, invisibly, and you're just reacting, living on autopilot, calling it your life. But what if it's not? What if you've never actually been in control? The moment you start to see, there comes a moment when everything starts to shift, a moment when you begin to notice your own patterns, your reactions, your thoughts, and for the first time, you realize something is off. This is what Jung called becoming conscious. It's the beginning of awareness, but it's also the beginning of discomfort, because once you start seeing your shadow, you can't unsee it. You begin to notice how often you act out of fear, how often you pretend, how often you hide. And it's unsettling, because it forces you to confront parts of yourself you've been avoiding your entire life. Most people turn away at this point. They go back to the comfort of the persona, back to the illusion. But if you keep going, something powerful happens. You start to separate yourself from your patterns. You realize that your thoughts are not you. Your emotions are not you. Your reactions are not you. They are parts of you. And that changes everything. Because for the first time you have a choice. You can observe and instead of react. You can question instead of obey. You can face the shadow instead of running from it. And that's where real transformation begins. Integrating the darkness. Carl Jung didn't believe you should destroy your shadow. He believed you should integrate it. This is the part most people misunderstand. The goal is not to become perfect. The goal is to become whole. Because your shadow is not just darkness. It also contains strength, creativity, truth, power. The parts of you that were rejected often hold your greatest potential, but only if you're willing to face them. Integration means acknowledging your shadow, accepting it, understanding it, without letting it control you. It means being honest about who you are, even when it's uncomfortable, because the more you deny your shadow, the more it controls you. But the more you accept it, the more control you gain. This is what Jung called individuation, the process of becoming your true self, not the mask, not the illusion, but something deeper, something real. And it's not easy. It requires confronting your fears, your insecurities, your darkest thoughts. But on the other side of that, there's freedom. You will never see yourself the same way. Once you truly understand this, there is no going back, not to who you were, not to how you used to think, not to the version of yourself you believed was real, because something has already shifted. At first, it's subtle. You start noticing small things, the way you react in conversations, the way your mood changes depending on who you're around, the way you adjust your personality without even thinking about it. And suddenly, it doesn't feel natural anymore. It feels observed, almost like you're watching yourself from the outside. And that's when it hits you. The version of you that you've been calling yourself is just a pattern, a collection of behaviors, reactions, adaptations, not something fixed, not something real. Just something repeated so many times that it became familiar, and familiarity feels like identity. But Jung's theory forces you to confront something deeper. If your personality can change depending on the situation, if your thoughts can appear without your control, if your reactions come from parts of yourself you don't even fully understand, then what exactly are you? This is where most people stop, because this question is dangerous. It destabilizes everything. Your beliefs, your confidence, your sense of control. It creates a gap between who you thought you were and what you're starting to see. And in that gap, there's uncertainty. There's discomfort. There's silence. But there's also truth, because for the first time you're no longer fully identified with the mask. You're aware of it, and awareness changes everything. You begin to notice how people around you are also acting through their personas. You see how they filter themselves, how they hide certain emotions, how they perform. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Conversations start to feel different. You hear what people say, but you also feel what they're not saying. You notice tension behind words. You recognize insecurity behind confidence. You see fear hidden behind control. And slowly, The world starts to look different, not fake, but layered, full of masks, full of hidden motives, full of unconscious behavior. And then you realize something even more disturbing. You've been doing the same thing your entire life. Every reaction, every emotional trigger, every insecurity, every desire to be accepted. It wasn't random, it was structured, conditioned, built over time, and reinforced again and again, until it became you, or at least what you thought was you. But now you're seeing beyond that. You're starting to recognize the patterns, the loops, the automatic responses, and for the first time, you have distance from them, and that distance is power. Because when you can observe something, you are no longer fully controlled by it. This is the beginning of real awareness. Not the kind that sounds good in theory, but the kind that feels uncomfortable, the kind that forces you to question everything. And here's the part no one talks about. This awakening is not peaceful, at least not at first. It can feel isolating, because once you start seeing through illusions, you realize how many people are still living inside them. You realize how many conversations are superficial, how many identities are fragile, how many people are driven by unconscious fears they don't even recognize. And you can't just go back to not knowing. You can't pretend anymore. And that can make you feel disconnected, different, like you don't fully belong in the same reality as everyone else. But that's part of the process, because Jung never said this path would be easy. He said it would be real, and reality is often uncomfortable. But here's where everything changes, because this awareness doesn't just show you the illusion, it gives you a choice most people never realize they have. You can continue living on autopilot, reacting, repeating, performing, or you can start becoming conscious of your own patterns. You can pause before reacting. You can question your emotions. You can face the parts of yourself you've been avoiding. And slowly, you begin to integrate, not perfectly, but honestly. You stop trying to be good all the time. You stop trying to fit into a perfect image. You start accepting your contradictions, your flaws, your shadow. And something unexpected happens. You become more real, not more perfect, not more impressive, but more authentic. And that authenticity is something most people never reach, because they're too busy protecting the mask, too afraid to look deeper, too attached to the identity they've built. But you've seen what's behind it, and once you see it, you can't go back. You can only go deeper, and the deeper you go and the more you understand something that Jung realized long ago. You are not just one thing. You are not just your thoughts. You are not just your personality. You are something far more complex, a system of layers, conscious and unconscious, light and dark, persona and shadow. And the more you bring those parts together, the closer you get to something real, not a perfect self, but a whole self. And that changes everything. Because at that point, you're no longer just reacting to life, you're aware of it. You're no longer trapped inside patterns, you're seeing them. And even if you don't fully escape them, you understand them. And that understanding is what sets you apart from who you used to be, from who most people still are. So now the question is not, who are you? But how much of you is actually real? And once that question enters your mind, it never really leaves.